seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast. It is myself, John Anderson, in the hot seat once again. Joining me tonight, for the moment, we have Jonny McGinty. Jonny, good evening.
Hello, how are we doing?
I'm very well. Do you know what I really appreciate in a person, Jonny? The ability to be on time.
Do you know there's a very famous American football coach who says the best ability is availability?
And here we are.
I've got the best ability, that's all I'm saying.
The dream team has arrived. Yes, we may be joined by some special guests throughout the evening whose timekeeping is not quite as up to spec as me and McGinty here. If you're stumbling upon this podcast for the first time, welcome. It's good to have you along. We will be looking at all things Scottish Rugby. There's been a couple of bits of news, and we'll have a review of some fixtures. There was one of the teams was up against some sort of small South African side. It was pretty, and our other team were victorious against that absolute giant of world rugby at home at the Dam Health. So we will delve into those possibly before those people arrive, because if we go
really making the most of him not being yet, are you?
Yeah, we can properly batter into this. But yeah, if you like what you hear, head over to patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast, where you can subscribe for £3 a month and get some exclusive content, including we do every week after the podcast. We continue on and we do Hands in the Ruck, which is our any other business section where we fundamentally put the world of rugby to rights. And I've got expectations that tonight might well be spectacular, because there has been some classic world rugby stuff going on this week. So we will come to that in due course. Let's start though. That's a record for me how quickly I got through that.
That was very quick. I'm actually still researching something.
Sorry, there you go. See,
normally you're so much quicker than I expected.
I'm glad speed impresses you, Jonny. Right, so let's move on to the news. We will start with some signing news. At the Dam Health, Paddy Harrison, who has shown a bit of form over the last few weeks and is very highly rated over at the Dam Health. He's signed his first pro contract. They've announced the length of time as well, which they've started doing this again, Jonny.
Yeah.
It's like it's fallen out of fashion.
Very interesting.
So Paddy Harrison, a 4-year deal, a young hooker. As I said, he's been looking promising over the last wee while. Had a very good game at the weekend as well. So I think it's a good signing for them, Jonny. Good to see them signing non-British and Irish Lions as well.
He's going to be here in like 10 minutes. You might as well get it out.
I know. I'm just going for it.
No, I think it's a really good signing. He's certainly sure he's got more than enough, I think, to make it with Edinburgh. We've seen quite a few sort of emerging talents in both teams the last couple of months.
Yep.
He looks probably the most full-time professional rugby ready of all of them, I would say.
Yeah.
Be interested to see if he can keep it up for 4 years, but I mean, he's certainly off to a good start, and he got Edinburgh out of a bit of a sticky situation on Saturday. So
Thing is, as well, with Edinburgh, obviously they've got Dave Cherry there and Stuart McInally. McInally's not the youngest at the Roost anymore. He's getting on a wee bit. There's an opportunity for Harrison to grab that shirt and go, do you know what? No, I will be your hooker for the next 4 years, and really dominate that shirt.
Definitely, and as much as we've just talked him up and said he's had a really good month and he's playing really well, he looks professional ready. He doesn't look test ready,
no.
So I don't think they have to worry for quite a long time about losing him for any internationals or anything like that. I think Rambo probably we're not going to see in many Scotland squads, but Dave Cherry we still might. So they are going to have a need to have an extra hooker in there that they can get into a matchday squad, and he's shown he's more than capable of being a matchday squad member and probably progressing into being the starter. So
I tell you what's not match ready. Let's put it this way: the Edinburgh Twitter feed. I've just scrolled through it, and honestly, it's like I've PM'd Jonny in a wee side chat to say it is like looking at someone's Bebo profile. The emojis, like all the emojis, like someone's getting commission on their emojis. It's ridiculous, and I felt dirty looking through it as well. But that's maybe just like my Glasgow bias.
To be fair, they did absolutely body that guy trying to accuse him of virtue.
They did. That was magnificent.
That was very funny.
And we did call that at the time. That was spectacular. But I mean, I just want a post without an emoji. Just that's all I'm asking for. Could you make that happen?
That's how you get engagement, John. Have you never had to sit through some sort of nonsense social media seminar?
This is what you do, Jonny. This is you're the media guru of the operation here. I'm just the loudmouth nonsense of the operation. So
I depressingly did have to do a lot of that in my previous job.
Nice.
And yeah, like we quite often would get sent on a social media course and they would talk about how you need to do these things to build your engagement, and yeah, it just makes me a bit sad, really.
Yuck. Well, let's move on to happier topics. Former Glasgow coach Danny Wilson is no longer on the SRU payroll. Woohoo! Danny Wilson has joined Harlequins of all the teams in the world, and not just that, he is the line-out and contact coach. Now, Jonny, I will refer you back to Danny Wilson's time in charge of Glasgow. What were a couple of areas that went spectacularly wrong for Glasgow?
This is a weird thing, is that I saw that and I thought, I don't remember Danny Wilson being all that much of a line-out or contact area expert.
He done scrum coaching before. He's done like scrum coaching, I think, and he has coached forwards. But yeah, line out and contact is very specialist. And
yeah,
Glasgow really struggled in those two areas.
To be honest, I find the idea of a contact area coach a bit of a head scratcher and kind of a wage rob anyway.
Would you prefer it to be a breakdown coach? Is that okay?
Well, anything like that, like. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong because obviously I'm a back, and so as much as I do have a bit of a bad habit of trying to get involved in as many breakdowns as I can. It's not really my area. But when you've already got a forwards coach and a scrum coach, I don't understand what you need a specific contact area coach for.
That's a really interesting thing. Given that, so at the weekend, Pete Horn was getting all the love from pundits and from the Glasgow kind of Ryan Wilson and all those guys. He was getting all the love.
Yeah, and he's skills coach, isn't he? Because that's another one.
But he's specialising on the breakdown.
Is he?
He is, yes. And Glasgow are the only team in the league that have got a sub 3 second average ball speed. So Pete Horner
I
is
heard
getting
that on
them
comms on Sunday, actually.
playing quickly, and the guys were saying, like, obviously the attack coach has got them moving pretty well, but it's the speed of ball, and Pete Horner is getting all the love for that. So maybe there's something in it, Johnny.
Maybe they are up something, because I just remember when it was Wales that had one first, wasn't it? They made Sam Warburton breakdown coach, I think.
Was it Warburton? Probably, yeah. That's just
very, very briefly.
Yeah.
And then everyone then suddenly breakdown coaches and contact area coaches and the very distressingly vague skills coaches were kind of appearing like pretty much everywhere.
It's good when you've got a skills coach that actually, like, they identify what skill they're coaching, and then they kind of that improves. Like we've had some skills coaches over the years at Scotland. Was it Wade that kind of comes to mind? Skills coach, still no idea what skill he was coaching, if any. But yeah, we've done this before, and it does seem like a bit of a catch-all term. But it's nice.
It does, yeah. It always seems like it's like a job for a recently retired pal. And maybe I don't know. Maybe every team gets offered like very specific coaching input, so that's what they send their skill coach on. So maybe your skills coach is always coaching different skills depending what course he's just been on. It just seems a bit weird.
Well, whatever course Pete Horn's just been on, he's doing a stellar job at Glasgow for the breakdown, because and we'll come on to that in due course. To answer a few of the questions coming in, yeah, so he was Danny Wilson was forwards coach at Scotland during the time where we thought Alan Dale was a world beating scrummager. So take that as you will. No, I have no love for Danny Wilson. I don't rate him in the slightest, so I'm not even going to, sugarcoat that one. But he's often
let him have a job. If he wants to have a job, I've got no issue with him going and finding a job. I just think that the choice of role for him certainly raised my eyebrows. Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, no disrespect to him. Like, it's not his fault people are hiring him. It's someone at Harlequins has clearly went, do you know what we really need, having just lost their attack coach to England? I know what we need. We need a line out and a contact coach. That is what we need. Let's get Danny Wilson, who absolutely done for Glasgow for 2 years. Let's get him on board. That's a game. That's what we need. Turgid play. No, that's definitely what we need for Harlequins with Marcus Smith at the helm. Good times. Let's do that.
I thought I'd imagined this, but I haven't.
Go for it.
Jerry Flannery is Harlequins line-out coach.
Oh.
Now,
joining the coaching group this summer. Now here
don't get me wrong. Like, I'd take line-out advice from Jerry Flannery.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But
so are they going to have Flannery and Wilson doing line-outs?
Maybe
and then Wilson also doing contact?
Maybe Flannery's away in the summer. Maybe that's Maybe he's off scale, or maybe he's getting a promotion to assistant skills coach. or chief skills coach, where he oversees all the skills coaching. Who knows? We'll stay on the topic of Scotland for a second, because we kind of should, because it's a Scottish Rugby podcast. The fixtures for the World Cup warm-up have been announced. Interestingly, lots of teams last couple of weeks have been announcing their summer fixtures, and it kind of left not very much for Scotland to pick up on. But in fairness, we've got 2 matches against France, and we've got Italy and Georgia. So for a World Cup in France, playing the hosts twice, home and away, doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah, I think it should be. And it's an interesting way of doing it. We've got 3 home games. I think, is it the 3rd game, the France one, that's an away one?
It's away,
so we're going to obviously do a home starter, another home game, fly to France, do an away game, fly back is a good way of preparing ourselves for World Cup travel schedules. Decent quality of opponents. I think we should turn over Georgia and Italy fairly handily. France will be 2 good ones. So it's a couple of good opportunities to put some plans into practice and an opportunity to two opportunities to test ourselves against a genuine contender for the World Cup. So good choices, well organised, I think, and it's rare that I'm that glowing about an SRU scheduling.
I wonder if the way the pool is set up has actually influenced our choice of fixtures as well. Well, I say our choice. I think Georgia, being the last one up, Georgia obviously renowned for their scrummaging ability. You've got Georgia, and then 12 days later you've got South Africa, and then you've got Tonga and Romania as well. Romania are not no disrespect for them, they're not a brilliant side, but they know how to scrummage. So I think Georgia might be there just as that kind of final point of kind of just setting the forwards up. We always play Italy in warm-ups, and I guess it's probably worth just isolating that and saying that's exactly what they are. They're warm-up matches. And we'll take that from there. But yeah, having France twice will be good. Looking forward to it.
So I think that'll be interesting.
I see we have been joined by the boys themselves. Here they are. The B squad have arrived. Better late.
the bomb squad.
The bomb squad. The bomb squad have arrived. Cammy's on the beers, so the bomb squad definitely have arrived.
I heard the bias was going crazy, so I thought I'd better get on here.
Not at all. That's fake news, Craig. Whoever's told you that was lying to you.
I believe Dougie Lowe every time, so don't.
He was at it. I was saying nothing.
I'm just waiting. I bet you there was several mentions of Hugh Pilotu. I can just guarantee.
Not yet. No.
Started on that yet.
No, I was saving that for when you arrived, Craig. We were just talking about the warm-up fixtures, guys. And having France twice, decent. We think the scheduling's pretty good. And Georgia is definitely a preparation for South Africa's bomb squad. So what's your thoughts, Cammy?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's fairly unsurprising, I guess, with the name that, Georgia, Italy, and a couple of games against France. It's fine. I think there'll be good tests. I'll be interested to see how well it sells. That's the only thing. I think France will sell out. Italy, now at the minute, I got an email from the SRU earlier today saying there are 60,000 for Italy, and they expect it to sell out in time for, and they've still got a couple of months to go, but in the autumn, and we know they will deny this, in the autumn, they were struggling to ship tickets for the autumn test, not for the obviously the New Zealand game sold out, but the other games, they struggled to get sold out BT Murrayfield. So I think Italy and Georgia are hard sells in the summer. I don't know. You don't have the August bank holiday in Scotland, do you? I say you because it's because I live in England. For new listeners to the podcast, I live in England, so I don't keep up with the Scottish bank holidays. You don't get the late August one because you're all back at school by then.
I don't even know what bank holidays I get anymore. Like, because they kind of
George just works for he wants.
Pretty much. Yeah. Had to work today. I was very upset about it.
So that's a bank holiday in England. The rest of the UK, I think that's a bank holiday. The Georgia game, but you got the festival on. You've got lots of other things happening. It's the summer. People are away on holiday. I just think it'll be interesting to see. And I think it'll depend heavily on the Six Nations. Scotland have a good Six Nations. They'll sell them out. But I think Georgia, I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia's buy an adult ticket, get a kid's ticket for £1.
You've just reminded me that 2019, we did the last warm-up game, and it was the last weekend of the Fringe, and getting the train from Edinburgh back to Fife was the single most unpleasant experience of my entire life. Going home on the last train after the rugby on the last night of the Fringe was hell on earth. And if they're planning on doing that again, they need to have some sort of plan in place. Because I think we were on a 3-carriage train, I think, that was going all the way back to Arbroath. And it was the last train. There was no choice. People were like lying in the luggage racks and stuff. It was horrendous.
This is ScotRail. I mean, the absolutely top-notch banter on the Twitter from ScotRail, but yeah, absolutely arranging train travel.
Craig, welcome. Good to have you along. What's your take on the fixtures? I mean, they're kind of pointless, really, aren't they? Because we're not going to do it in the World Cup anyway.
No, it might be some people's chance to see the last Gregor Townsend game plan at home. You never know.
I think Italy in the Six Nations might be that, Craig.
Well, there is that as well. Yeah. You never know.
We will come on to this in due course, guys.
Yeah. No. Again, it's warm up games. I'm unconvinced with 2 France games. I'm not convinced by that at all. I would have liked to have seen them playing someone else to get a bit of variation. But as you say, they don't. It's whatever. Whatever comes along, they'll come along. When was the last time? Did they not play Georgia? Because I'm sure I went to it. It was through in Glasgow, but it was like. They did not play. Was it Georgia that they played?
2019 warm-ups were 2 games against Georgia home and away, and 2 games against France home and away.
France home and away.
Because I reported on the second France game, and that's when I realised how tall Jamie Ritchie was, and how short John Barclay is. Interestingly, found that out on the same day.
Dear diary, Jamie Ritchie is so tall.
John Barclay is not as tall as he claims to be.
It's not. I think the Georgia game you're thinking of, Craig, was the game down at
Kilmarnock or something.
Down at Kilmarnock, yeah, which I covered for the blog with others, and and I was standing beside the bus with my press pass on and stuff like that, and like the Georgian coach and all that clearly thought I was important and got shook my hand as he come off and stuff, and I was like, hey, I was just wanting to see you like Gorgodza. It clearly thought it was important, so good times.
It was just your gait, the way you looked. It was obviously importance just oozes from you.
That's
how you carry yourself.
Yeah,
this is it. You don't get this in the podcast, especially not in the audio version.
It's always fun to see who gets capped over the summer warm-ups as well, because famously, that's where Hugh Blake got his Scotland caps.
He did. Yeah. Oh, Hugh Blake, the centre flanker himself.
Yeah.
Loved it. Shall we move on? We'll touch a wee bit on the rugby at the weekend there. As I said in the prelude to this, we were talking about Edinburgh's supreme victory against the giants of world rugby that are Zebra, scraping through at the end. Really, really toughing it out, Craig. Good stuff from them.
Oh, so you want me to comment on it? Are you just going to just discuss it amongst yourselves? No,
I think it would be really nice to hear how you found it.
Well, I think you got my comments on Messenger when I was standing there.
I had to explain those comments to my son, by the way, because I read them out. I'll tell everyone what the comments were and how that conversation went once we get to the second half of the podcast.
Johnny, you should know not to let your son near any of your electronics. He might see your history. But I think it was. The problem I have is it was a difficult game to to watch, but we came away with 5 points.
That's
so the thing. As far as I'm concerned, it's job done. And we played a game with people out of position. Played a game with different players on the field than we normally have. Just a big shout out to Paddy Harrison, who's re-signed today. He's a phenomenal talent at hook, and I think we're going to see a lot more. And thank goodness we've secured him for 4 years.
We said very nice things about him before you arrived, by the way, just for the record.
Yeah, he really, So it's one of those situations. I think we were looking a little bit rudderless until Big Bill came on. So did Ben Velicott, and they seemed to sort things out. Unfortunately, James Land came on for 5 minutes and then ended up having to go off with a head knock. So, but it is what it is. As far as I'm concerned, it's just what we needed, and we move on.
It's funny, Cammy, isn't it? Because we all joking aside, we a bonus point win is a bonus point win, and the record books won't care a jot that it was squeaky bum time.
No, I think there is something interesting though going on at Edinburgh. I'm interested. I don't want this to be a pile on, Craig. I'm genuinely interested in your take on this. Is that Mike Blair coming out and saying he's struggling to get the best out of players? Then we've got is it Ben Healy, the monster lad, coming in at 10. And, and Embra on paper, and as we are led to believe with the, I don't want to get into the whole Kinghorn thing again, but Embra aren't bad for 10s. So something has changed to make Embra want to go out and recruit a 10 at the same time Mike Blair saying he's struggling to get the best out of players. And it could just be a bit of candid honesty from Mike Blair, which would be refreshing. That's where Embra are at the moment. He's trying to figure out what's going wrong. He's being open and honest with the players and the media, and I think that's refreshing. But at the same time, it could be read the other way, which is just like, I don't know what I'm doing at the minute. I don't know what to do, and things aren't going as they should be. What do you think, from a coaching point of view, they're struggling, Craig, or do you think it's one of those just kind of difficult patches every team goes through and has to get through now and again?
For me, if I look at from the outside in, yes, that did cross my mind when he came out and said, I'm having to do better myself because I'm a bit stuck here. It gave me a little alarm bell. But on the other side of things, if you look back at what was said when he first came on board, that he said that he initially turned it down. He didn't want the job. He didn't feel he was ready for it. And Scott and Jim Malander and the SRU convinced him to take it. And I think we always talk about the difficult second album, and he has had this bump in wow. Look how much he's turned Edinburgh around. But where I think we're struggling at this moment in time, and where he needs to maybe have a deeper look into it is just the physicality of the squad. That they're starting to lose the physicality, where Cockrell brought that very much to the fore, to the point it got boring because it was always going into the forwards. He's energised the backs. He's told the backs, like, we've got movement. We know exactly what movements we want, but also play what's in front of you. But we are losing that physical gain line in both attack and in defence. Zebri just ran at us at times, and we're breaking through. Poor, and so I think it's maybe, and not to be Wilson, Danny Wilson, where he sacked the defence coach because he blamed it on him. But I think there has to be a little bit of a look at the defence coach and say, what is going on here, and maybe the boys need to look at themselves as well.
I think, to be honest as well, being a head coach in Scotland for the pro clubs has its own kind of unique challenges in the way that the clubs are set up in relation to the national setup and the union and how we deal with things. Because when Mike Blair's talking about how he's struggling to get the best out of players, you're not always getting to do exactly what you want to do with your playing staff when you're head coach of the pro clubs in Scotland. If you think back to the week before the Tonga game in last year's Autumn Internationals, which was kind of right at the start of the Kinghorn experiment, it was maybe Blair Kinghorn's second or third start at 10 for Edinburgh, and the same weekend Ross Thompson was starting at 15 for Glasgow for the first time. And I don't think any of the coaching staffs at that point were particularly sold on either of those ideas. But because it comes down from the national setup that that's what their plan is and that's what they need these players to do, then all of a sudden you start having to ask your players to do stuff that maybe isn't in your game plan, that maybe you don't think suits the way they play for you. And that's something that I don't think a lot of other club coaches have got to deal with. So I think that must be really difficult. I always think that when you see players getting kind of shoehorned into doing parts of their Scotland role in their clubs and it leads to them being out of position or doing a different job to usual, it's not something that a lot of other coaches have got to deal with, and it must be really difficult.
It's interesting as well when they talk about the press conferences that we're talking about certain players being managed. So obviously the people that are Scotland internationals, they are managed in their game time. The club don't have to manage all Scottish players. It's just the players within the national setup. So as a club becomes more successful or, starts to get a bit of form and players get called up, it becomes more challenging for the coach. So that, Edinburgh did have a good year last year. and we're providing more players to the Scotland setup than they have done historically. So with that comes, as you rightly say, Johnny, those extra challenges of managing game time and making sure people are getting the rest periods that they need.
I think the other thing that you don't get as a coach until, and you quite, I think I agree with you, you're exposed as a coach in Scotland because our setups are really fairly unique, that you go from being as Mike Blair was, an assistant coach in charge of skills and attack, right? So that's his remit. To a certain extent, he's getting told what to do by his boss, by Gregor Townsend in Scotland, as it was. He's told what to do. It's directed at him. He'll chip in with his own ideas, but he'll have a little bit of autonomy, and he's in control of his own little bit, but he doesn't have to fit all the pieces together. He's not in charge of putting it all together. I think he's then, again, as you said, Craig, reluctantly appointed as Embra coach. To me, he's got all the tools and all the skills to be a very, very, very good head coach. I think he communicates very well. I think he's obviously it's hard to say for a former professional rugby. He understands the game and the modern game, even though he's not played for a while. But it's a certain skill, I think, to delegate to others and give them the responsibility and manage a team of coaches as well as a team of players, and to give them that responsibility. But at the same time as delegating the responsibility, also to give direction, to say, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do this instead, whilst also giving them the kind of autonomy to come up with their own ideas. So it's a real skill to do that. And I think, the first year they're all getting to know each other. It's a bit of a honeymoon period and everything just clicks. But probably the second season, there'll be the communication is really the key. And how much control does Mike Blair want to have over the rest of the team, needs to have, I suppose, over his coaches? How much autonomy does he give them? How confident is he in telling them that no, they're doing it wrong, and he wants them to change the way they're doing it and have those conversations? So it's a skill in of itself. And I don't think there's like a step up into that. There's not like a kind of a way you can be eased into that job. You're just doing it. And I think it's probably more exposed than Gregor Townsend was when he took over Glasgow, because rugby just didn't have the profile that it has now in Scotland. The pro teams aren't under the same level of scrutiny as they are now. So when Gregor Townsend did it, he probably flew under the radar for a couple of seasons before, to get used to how things are. And I'm not really sure he learned on the job anyway, as we'll come on to. But now for Mike Blair, he's put in a situation where he's not only having to manage a team of players, he's having to manage a team of coaches. He's having to work with them. He's having to get the best out of a lot of people. And that's a real skill, to go in at the top of an organization and do that, and kind of almost not get involved in the day-to-day stuff. He can to an extent, but he hasn't got time. He hasn't got time to be on the training pitch every day doing everything. So I don't know how you do it, but I think, I wonder whether part of it is he needs to step away from getting the best out of the players. That's his coach's job, is to get the best out of the players. He needs to get out the best out of his coaches to get the best out of the players. And that's a skill I don't think we've developed in Scotland very well in our coaches.
Yeah, and I think also, for me, as a fan and as someone who has seen the dark days of Edinburgh. Now, John, you had a fairly big take on it in our chat about saying that they're almost as bad as Edinburgh a few years ago. I wouldn't go that far. They have echoes of it, and it's almost like, especially when it comes to defence, they have echoes of it. But all of the mixture is there. All of the ingredients are there, and I still stand by it. There's a top four team in there. And there's a top four coach in there. It's how do we get that on the field and string those games together. I think I don't want to kick it down the road constantly, but I think next season is going to be the make or break, because he's going to have Ben Healy there. He's going to have whether people laugh or joke or whatever they want to say, but he's going to have high level 10s at his disposal, and he's going to have Savala in the background.
The problem is, though, then that comes back to what I was just saying a minute ago, because what is whoever is in the head coaching job of Scotland next season going to want him to do with those 10s? Is he going to get to do what he wants to do, play the game plan he wants to play, or is he going to come up with a game plan for Blair Kinghorn, and then the national coaching staff come across and say, oh, actually, no, we're moving towards Ben Healy for this next block of games, so chuck that game plan. Here's what we want Ben Healy to do.
I honestly, that is all up in the air now, Johnny, because you've got to look at Ben Healy. Everyone reported in all the reports about Ben Healy, Townsend has been at Ben Healy to come over and play for Scotland for so long, this, that, and the other, and all of a sudden Townsend's looking for another job. So if I was Ben Healy and I've just signed this contract, I'm thinking, well, what the hell am I going to do? And so unless, if you look at it in a roundabout way, has Ben Healy been told that Mike Blair's in line for moving up to Scotland? And you've got to, because Ben Healy coming to Edinburgh, although I can see we needed a 10 of his experience and his boot. Glasgow could have quite easily have taken him a year ago. So why? Because there was talk of him coming into Glasgow a year ago.
Yeah, but he chose to stay at Munster because he was given assurances regarding the succession planning for Ireland at 10, which haven't transpired.
Yeah, they haven't transpired, but why are we not then talking about him at Glasgow now than coming to Edinburgh? So what are the reasons for that? And if Tooney's on his way out and everyone and Tooney's decided he's on his way out, why is he then telling this guy, look, you come and play for Scotland now, and I'm going to put you into my team when he's just about out the door for 6 months down the line. So it's a really interesting movement that I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen. I don't think Mike Blair's ready for Scotland, but what is all clicking around? Because there's obviously things clicking around if Townsend's looking for another job.
I think the answer to your point, Craig, regarding why was Healy not mentioned for Glasgow, Tom Jordan's the simple answer to that. Tom Jordan has really stepped up this season and is now, when Ross Thompson comes back, everyone's really interested to see how Thompson will go under Franco Smith's game plan, which is night and day from Danny Wilson. So, Ross Thompson's got will still have an opportunity to try and put his stamp on that shirt and get that shirt. But Tom Jordan's got that shirt nailed down at the moment. And Ben Healy coming in would struggle to get it off him the way Jordan's playing at the moment.
I see Healy quite. I watched the Munster game on the weekend, even though the weather was horrendous. He doesn't remind me of Tom Jordan as slightly maybe pushing the boat, but he's got that physicality. He's a bigger lad. Now, okay, fair enough, Blair Kinghorn's a big lad, but I think there's more to Healy than Blair Kinghorn when it comes to a standard natural 10, whereas Blair Kinghorn is this all-round athlete. But again, everyone's talking about the Kinghorn experiment being over. Well, in my mind, he's a fantastic 10 for Edinburgh, and we're happy with him at 10. But I'll tell you what, he's going to be a great player, utility player for Scotland, sitting on the bench and covering 10, wing and 15.
I've said this before. I honestly think that the actual perfect end result of the Kinghorn experiment, or whatever you want to call it, was to turn him into Franz Steyn, and it seems to have been more successful than not, if that's what we're going to do in the end. Because now we could go 6-2 whenever we want and put Blair Kinghorn on the bench. He's probably going to end up back in the back three for this year's Six Nations.
Yep. Shall we? Any more in Edinburgh? Anyone get anything else to offer? It's not all doom and gloom. You've got a game away in France at the weekend, which that's another confidence builder for you. So you'll be two for two at the end of the weekend, and that'll be you. You'll be
exciting
on a roll.
times. And unfortunately, I'm not getting the chance to shout at Owen Farrell, so I'm really disappointed in that one. But
we will come on to that also in due course. I think I fear that might get a mention later in the podcast. Shifting across the road, Glasgow obviously had the pleasure of welcoming that minnow team from South Africa, the Stormers. And all joking aside, what an occasion it was at Scotstoun. It was absolutely brilliant. A great game of rugby. The only downside of it all, and this will come as no surprise to anyone who's ever listened to me, was Andrew Brace, who was honking. But everything else was amazing. It was a great game of rugby. Johnny, I take it you watched the game.
Oh, I did. Yeah, we went back and forwards on going and eventually ended up decided not to. Equal parts gutted and quite relieved because the atmosphere looked amazing and all the family day stuff and that looked brilliant. The weather looked absolutely miserable.
It was terrible.
I don't think if I'd taken the kids, I would have been thanked for that. So I'm kind of glad we just watched it at home, but I'm glad we did watch it. Although my 6-year-old did turn around at one point during the game and go, "Dad, what's a brace you throbber?" And I was like, it's actually 3 words, mate, but I'll explain it to you in a while.
In 10 years' time.
Because, he was his usual interested self.
Cammy, does it speak to, like, obviously, we've talked about the pro teams and the national team in some ways, inability to win away from home. We continue to have this knack of welcoming the best teams in the world in the case of the Stormers, and not saying they put out a full strength team. They absolutely didn't. But, there was a couple of Springboks in there. You're welcoming a very, very good side to Scotstoun and, walking away, like Craig said before, a 5-point win.
Yeah. And, I think we're at the point with both pro teams and even to a certain extent Scotland where it's like, oh, yeah, winning at home, fine. Do you know what I mean? A narrow loss at home against a good side, fine. And I think it's what we've come to expect now. And quite rightly so, that, the big European teams will come to Glasgow, they'll come to Edinburgh, and they'll be given they'll be pushed all the way. And that's a great thing. But until Glasgow go away at the Stormers, or, I can beat Saracens away from home, then it's all for now. Do you know what I mean? It's great to have that kind of home, that kind of sense of having your home to defend and to really put on a show and have all the fans coming. But I think until you can do it away from home on a regular basis, it's I don't think it shows any progress. So have your day, enjoy the win against the Stormers. It was a great game. There were some nice tries. It was nice to see Hugh Jones back playing well, but I don't. It's lovely. You go, oh well, that's good. That's we beat a big team at home, but I'm at the point now where it's a bit boring. Yeah, fine. It's just it's something we've come to expect, that both pro sides will do well against anyone that turns up to play them at home. Until it starts happening away from home regularly, I meet it with a disinterested shrug, as I do with a lot of things I feel about pro rugby in Scotland. being as I am, completely ambivalent about either side.
You do like to get your neutrality in there quite often, so that's good.
I'm neutral to the point of being disinterested in both.
Yeah. Well, you did mention Hugh Jones, so I'll come to you, Craig. Hugh Jones played at the weekend. Definitely put his hand up for Scotland selection, man of the match. Have you seen the match, Craig? Seen the highlights? Enjoyed the wonders of Hugh Jones and that try he scored.
I thought you get to talk about my future husband, Hugh Jones, and I don't.
I'm just wanting Craig to enjoy it because I thought you might want to talk about Tuipulotu, Johnny.
Or Hugh Piloto, as everyone's been now thinking that's what's going to happen when it comes to the Six Nations. I'm interested to see how he goes. I thought he started working well when I watched him play for Harlequins, and he suits that sort of open attack play quite well. And actually, there's one name that's put his hand up for international glory quite quickly within Glasgow, and that is Pete Horn, because we've got a gap for an attack coach at this moment in time in for Scotland, and I'll tell you what. As I watched the game, watched the interviews at the beginning, and everyone was talking about how Franco Smith has come in, but he's directing things, and he leaves Pete Horn to get on and deal with his attack. And I think that's the sharpest I've seen Glasgow for some time in attack.
Pete Horn is not the Glasgow attack coach, though.
I thought he was attack coach.
He is not. He is the breakdown coach.
Right, okay.
They've given Pete Horn breakdown.
Yep.
I've been told he's the attack coach, or he's part of. He's part.
Well, obviously the breakdown plays
what does Pete Horn know about the breakdown?
Well,
he has been.
George is rapid, and so everyone else has to be rapid.
He threw that comment away in an interview at some point about doing breakdown, but I'm sure he was.
The attack coach is Nigel Carolyn.
Right. Okay. Well, I have to sit back and shut up then because.
Glasgow, we were talking about it before you guys arrived. Pete Horn has the breakdown at Glasgow just now is rapid. It's the fastest breakdown in the league. It's the only team under 3 seconds for average ball speed for getting the ball away at rucks. They are playing really quickly, and the game plan they've got revolves around Pete Horn. And so you're right in saying that the attack flourishes because of what Pete Horn's doing. It's just he's not the attack coach.
That's interesting because I had it was mentioned anyway. I thought I picked it up, but I've obviously picked it up wrong. But shows you how interested I am in Glasgow. But no, I think it's one of those situations. I think we have to be careful, and just as Cammy says, have your day, enjoy your win, get some more season tickets sold, and see how we go because. Hugh Jones has no. I'm not meaning it bitchy. What I'm trying to say is, Hugh Jones can blow hot and cold, so you have to be careful with him. You have to be careful and getting so loved up like Jonny does that.
He's gorgeous and he was magnificent though. And I agree with you, Craig. Though I think
he plays well.
He suits a certain type of gameplay, and actually, it's interesting that he would almost fall off the radar. When Townsend changes his game plan and is looking for a defensive 13 and what have you, Franco Smith's got Glasgow playing like Glasgow used to play, and it's frantic and it's fast, and Jones flourishes in that, and so does a lot of the other players, but it's not necessarily how Scotland play. So we may see a disconnect there.
I like the fact that Craig went fully into that come down with me meme mode of like, what a sad little life, Jane. You've won. Enjoy your win, but you've not carried yourself with the decorum of...
Come back after you've scored a 79th minute try to beat Zebri at home. And then
yes, absolutely. Don't start your pish with me when you're coming up against a big European team. Then you'll see.
I'll tell you actually. Speaking of Scotland, is when it was announced that Christmas, in amongst my rage at the idea of making a winger captain, what I did say was Kyle Staines an experienced player. I don't think he'll be spending that much time in the Scotland camp. He'll be around to be a really good captain for Glasgow. I think he's going to be spending quite a lot of time in the Scotland camp coming up because obviously with Darcy being injured, with question marks around Duhan, Kyle Staines was phenomenal again on Sunday. He's put together, much like Patrick Harrison, a month of really, really good performances in a position where we need to bring in someone who's played well for this year's Six Nations, and I think we'll see quite a lot of Kyle Staines.
Cammy looked like he was wanting to jump in there. No, you're not. You're all aboard the Kyle. All good. You happy with the Kyle Staines hype train?
I remember when everyone lost it when he scored a hat trick of tries against who was that? Georgia.
4 against Tonga.
4 tries. Tonga, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is amazing! He scored 4 tries in international rugby." It was Tonga, right? Cool your jets.
I think it's going to be.
I'm not saying I could do it, but just saying.
Because I think, for me, it's how, what do we value in our 13? Because there's a Doogie's commented as well in the comments. He's never going to displace Harris. Well, Yeah, but I'm not convinced Harris is the best attacking 13 that we can put on the field. So, how is Townsend going to take this Six Nations? Has he decided that he's going to stick with the defensive? We're going to let others play with the ball, and then we're going to work on their mistakes, or are we going to keep the ball and actually try to play with it this year?
I disagree. I'm going to disagree with you, Craig. I think Chris Harris is a good attacking 13. I just don't think that's what he's asked to do when he plays for Scotland. I think his primary role there is to organise the defensive line and to disrupt the opposition attack. But I've seen Chris Harris run some very nice attacking lines before. I think he can do it. I'm not saying he can do the Hollywood kind of offloads and stuff and the kind of stuff Sione Tuipulotu can do, but Sione Tuipulotu is what Gregor Townsend wishes he'd had when he first became Scotland coach. I don't necessarily think it's what Scotland need right now at this stage. I still think there's an argument for pragmatism within a Scottish defence and attack. I don't think we're at a point where we're so solid that we can afford to be a little bit more fancy. I think Chris Harris offers enough, and I think he offers stuff in attack. I just don't think he's been used in that way.
I think because we've seen Tuipulotu at 12 though, and actually he's grown into that 12 role a bit more as well. I've got no doubt I would put good money on it just now. You'll see Tuipulotu and Harris 12-13 starting against England. All things considered, Tuipulotu is the form Scottish player, period, right now. He is absolutely tearing it up and has been all season. And he offers, I don't want to crow Jim Hamilton's nonsense, but he is different to anything we have. But he's also solid in all the basics that we would want to see at 12. And the fact he's able to kick and distribute, he's the 12 we've been needing.
When was the last time you saw any Scottish player, forward or back, break the line with 3 South Africans hanging off him backwards?
Yeah, well, he's running backwards.
I'm pretty sure I've seen Darcy Graham do that.
But Darcy isn't available, or else he could play 12.
True.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think there's a few people. It'll be interesting to see who we start to get back from injury as well, because obviously, Craig, I saw Hamish Watson's back training.
Yeah.
Great news, obviously, and it'll be interesting to see if he gets some game time before the Six Nations. Tom Gordon's back for Glasgow as well, so 7 options starting to recover. And Rory Darge, there is rumours he'll be back for the sort of midpoint of the Six Nations as well. So the stocks in the forwards will probably start to build up again. The problem for me, we'll obviously do a proper Six Nations preview when the time comes, but prop's going to be the issue, isn't it, really? It always is in Scotland, but tight head's going to be an absolute nail-biter.
Squad's out next week.
We've got Javan Sebastian in the wings, are we fine?
You are clearly just up for winding me up tonight.
Nick Oterak's been on Twitter this week saying he likes haggis. So,
I saw that. That was very cryptic. I mean, not as cryptic as he thinks it was, I don't think.
I don't think so. Seeing as he's had about 5 minutes for Edinburgh in the last, 5 or 6 games,
Yeah, but I was going to say that would be proper Tombola stuff, wouldn't it? Or Toonbola. That would be...
But if Murphy Walker's injured and stuff like that, he's going to be...
Is he? He's a loose head, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
So...
it's going to be...
Beat it. We're absolutely swimming in loose heads, mate.
Well, I mean, we're hardly swimming, but we've got a few. We're not at 37-year-old WPNL and nobody else. We're not at that stage. So
learn to do what I'm reliably informed is a totally different job from loose head, and then we'll talk. I mean, it looks like the same job to me, but whatever.
I mean, Ollie Kebble made it look like the same job, but whatevs.
That's because he's shite. Oh.
Whoa!
One,
56-19.
And 2, an absolutely cardinal sin to come on here and come after my not so slim shady.
The not so slim shady.
How dare you?
Honestly, Manson, you are naughty step. Naughty step. At this rate, you'll be playing tight head for Scotland.
This is the second time. This is the second week in a row I've sworn on the non.
Yeah,
on the non,
I know.
You know,
Honestly,
ridiculous.
we're going to
I'm
start.
dragging the pod down to the gutter.
We're
I
going to start
apologise.
some disciplinary.
Speaking of dragging things out, just because you beat the Stormers, don't think you can drag the Glasgow analysis out over half an hour, John Anderson.
Yeah,
I think you.
We didn't even start the Glasgow analysis till like 45 minutes.
45 minutes, yeah. I've timed this very well. I gave 15 to Edinburgh, 15 to Glasgow, and 30 to nonsense.
don't get me wrong. Glasgow played very, very well, but let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet.
I don't. So all things considered, I don't think anyone is actually getting ahead of it. I think people are delighted.
Yeah, there is.
I think people are delighted with the win, but I don't think necessarily, like, again, a lot of people are just seeing this for what it is. It's progression. It's a team building. There's some really, really, like, people are excited because it's proper Glasgow rugby again. It's people seeing Glasgow throwing the ball about and enjoying that. That's what people want to see.
Thing is, it was fun. It was really good fun.
Believe
we
me,
enjoyed it.
It was like us last year, so I don't want to. I honestly don't want to take away from it. You've got new coaches coming, and he's made a huge difference, especially for some of the results that you've had, and now we're coming into your guests on the road as well, stuff like that. So I'm absolutely not trying to take away from it because it's good news. It's good news for Scottish rugby.
It's good to see people playing with a bit of confidence, and we can only hope that continues into the Six Nations. I do think Edinburgh are a better team than they've shown in their form as well. So I think all is rosy in Scottish rugby. Hey, who would have thought it? We've cracked it.
Is it, John?
Well, I think if you want to find out if it's all rosy, you should come and join us for our Patreon section. We will move over to there just now, but for now, we will leave our Freeview customers. Goodbye. It's good night from me, and good night, Jonny, Cammy, and Craig.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye, free people.
Free people. Goodbye.